Uh, Thank you, Matt. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Gretel Fonson. I'm the SBIR STTR Director at Connect. We're really excited to be able to continue to host these events for you at SBIR Connect. For those of you who are new to our workshops, SBIR Connect is Connect's new program through a partnership with NIWC Pacific under NAV4. NAV4 is Naval Information Warfare Systems Command and is located here in San Diego at Old Town. So this partnership is really meant to help demystify the SBIR program, but also NAV4, and also to make those partnerships between the government industry a little bit more accessible. We know those are a little bit difficult at times. And then just a quick overview of Connect. We're a San Diego nonprofit that aims to help you through our various programs. We have 4 major programs. We have Springboard, Cool Companies, Connect All, and now SBIR Connect. And our goal is really to provide you with access to mentors, educations, as well as investors. So if you're interested, check out our website or email us at team@connect.org for more information. Great. So now for today's workshop, we have 2 great speakers, which you probably already heard and saw while you were waiting. We have Chris Dillman, who is the Department of the Navy SBIR Experimentation Cell Lead. And he'll be talking about what experimentation is, how it helps the government, but more importantly, how it can benefit you, the small businesses. And then after Chris, we'll have our workshop regular, Shadi Azum. Shadi Azum is a NAV4 SBIR STTR program manager, and he'll be connecting the dots between Chris's presentation and his SBIR program office. But he's also going to be sharing some great resources with you, such as finding specific topics related to your own technology. For those of you who have no idea what SBIR is a Small Business Innovation Research Program. We did do a workshop already that you can look at our Vimeo account, but we also have some quick videos we created for you on our SBIR Connect page. So if you're curious and you want to learn more, just visit our page. We're also working on a resources page where we can describe a little bit more about NAV4, as well as the Department of the Navy and the other agencies that are participating in SBIR in general. So maybe in a week or 2, you can check back out on our website and it'll be there. So yeah, to get started, I do want to mention that the questions will be answered at the very end of the presentation. So Chris will go first, then Shadi, then questions. But as soon as they pop into your head, just put them on the chat and we'll do our best to answer them as they come. So with that, I want to thank Chris and Shadi for their time today. And Chris, please take it away.
Oh, thank you. It's a privilege being here to talk to the group and the panel, and thank you, Shadi. I appreciate it. So I am the lead of a new program out of the Department of Navy SBIR office. We've only been in inclusion for about a year now, and we're an experimentation cell. And I have a little presentation here that I'll pop to. 1 second. As soon as I remember how to share it.
Let me, if it's not coming up, I can share it on my end.
Yeah, can you share it on yours, please?
Okay, just give me 1 second to pull it up. Okay, while I pull it up, Chris, do you want to go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself?
Right. So like I said, I've been doing experimentation for the Navy, retired Navy myself, 21 years, and started out in 2004 with a series called Trident Warrior and a program called ForceNet, which is a long time ago. It was a C4I, or a computers and networks-based program. Been doing that fleet experimentation from 2004 and helped stand up and was part of the fleet experimentation program. And now I'm a part of a small company, and my main avenue is our core competency is the experimentation line. So I've been doing experimentations on ships, aircraft, submarines, shore stations, unmanned systems for over 15 years, and probably hundreds of experiments. from all sorts of nature, small business up to large fleet-wide experimentation venues. Okay, looks like you got the screen up now. The next slide, please. So what I wanted to talk about today, the purpose here is basically to inform and explain what the benefits of experimentation can be for the small businesses, specifically if they're in the Small Business Innovation Research Program. The basics of experimentation mean a lot to a lot of different people. So I'll also go in and I'll explain what experimentation really is in the context of what we're going to talk about today. The S&T community from the Department of Defense has lots of different definitions. I'm going to caveat that with what I'm talking about here. And the idea here is to expose and validate innovative technologies and create creative small businesses to kind of get that, maybe that itch that the larger companies can't scratch, and get in there and get some of your ideas that may be groundbreaking, may be changing for the gap analysis that Davy's looking for. So I'm going to define naval experimentation and discuss the purpose of what that experimentation is. I want to talk about the strategic overview of how experimentation generally works in the caveat of what we're talking about, naval experimentation. I will try to demystify the experimentation processes, which would be an entire lecture all in itself, but I'll hit some of the high points of that and look at some of the challenges and some of the mitigations in general that we can take a look at. And finally, I want to introduce my team as the DONSEC, what we do and how we do it. Next slide, please. So what is an experiment? Scientific method all the way back to 4th grade science. It's a venue to validate an emerging technology for naval experimentation. So in the naval experimentation, we have gaps, we have problems that need to be solved. And experimentation is a way to kind of look at that and talk about what we can do to solve that problem. So that's what the experimentation generally across the board is used for. Fundamentally, it's an attempt, just like anything else, to learn something, either with tactics, techniques, procedures, or a technology, a widget, as you might say, using it across in different environments and looking to gain knowledge. Gain knowledge is really the aspect of the experiment that is the important part. And I'm going to kind of split stomp on that through the next couple of slides. So the big thing about naval experimentation and in the venues is that you're not just running something in a vacuum. So if a technology is being experimented on and it is learning something and it's only in its own little environment, it's not really looking at the fleet aspects. Underway, there could be wind, there could be seas, there could be cyber accreditation issues, there could be all sorts of variables that can't be accounted for in a lab or a technical environment that can be done in a naval experimentation piece. And then that can be fed back to either prove the ability to fill that gap or provide feedback to the industry on how to develop that better so the sailors, Marines can use it in a better environment. Next slide, please. So why do we do experiments in the Navy? I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the primary purpose is to gain knowledge. What we learn from this, what does it matter? Why is this important to whoever it is you're trying to show the experiment data to? And really, it's all objective-based. Experimentation is objective-based, and you have to prove a thesis or demonstrate a capability. And that word demonstrate, I'm going to use a little bit further down in the next slide, is a little bit of a nuance in experimentation. So a demonstration is an experiment, but not all experimentation are demonstrations. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, and that's important, specifically in the verbiage of SBIR communities and what is being done. Again, I'll hit that in another slide here in a few minutes. So the benefits of why we do experiments is to close warfighter gaps. From the very beginning, as a small company, a small business, if you want to sell something to the greater enterprise, the customer base is what you're really going after. And in the Navy, that customer base is the warfighting gap. How do they reduce risk? How do you improve something they can't do now, or approve something that is available that could be used in the fight and could, against our adversaries that they can't do right now? That's always the purpose, is to kind of close that gap. We can't do something now, so what can you do to provide that? Gaining exposure. This is almost an underrated piece of experimentation. Going out and getting whatever it is the technology is exposed to sailors, exposed to the fleet, exposed to not just the flag level experiment, but the actual fleet users who are going to use it. It has all sorts of benefits to it. It can provide impact, like I said before, to how you develop. You might be looking at one warfighting area, but it could be used in a whole bunch of other areas, and you just don't know it because you're not familiar with how the Navy fights and what they're doing. And the biggest thing is to receive fleet feedback as well as in-flight developmental feedback prior to acquisition testing and evaluation. So those big words, they're acquisition, testing, and evaluation. That is, in my context, I'm talking today, the right side after experimentation is done. So test and evaluation is proving it against some sort of characteristic or requirement. Experimentation at this level, where I'm talking today, is prior to that. It's more of discovery based. Next slide, please. So I mentioned demonstration and I mentioned experiment. Words in this community have meaning, and they can be ripple effects. So a demonstration in one of the forms that is more commonly known is to go out, show off this technology. Everyone gets excited. They go back to their desk, hey, we got to have that. And then they go back to their daily lives and nothing ever happens. The big difference that could be attained in experiment is the ability to gain knowledge and get decisionable data that then can be used by the acquisition community to go back to can I fill a gap? If technology can get decisionable data, that gives the forces that want to purchase something, the fleet or the acquisition community, the ability to point to something constructive that can then be used later. A demonstration gets people excited, gets things going, and again, it gets the company known, it gets the things known, but in the end, without decisionable data, it's very difficult to move things through, move that needle, as we call it, to the acquisition community. Next one. So a basic strategic overview, and again, I'm going to take this in the context of what we're talking about today, basic general naval experimentation. There are the means, the system commands, the technical point of contact, the Navy SBIR program in itself, and small businesses. Those are ways of doing things. And then you have, the means of doing things. The ways and venues are the experimentation, the demonstration, the limited technical experiment, which I'll very briefly is a little bit of expanded on like a parking lot demo or something out on a surrogate platform where it's not in the full let's say a naval destroyer or something in space. But we're using surrogates to prove the capability to then take that a little bit further. And I'm going to mention Trident Warrior because this is a NAV war, and NAV wars, and this is Chris's terms here, I'll say. NAV war's primary experimentation venue, the Cadillac as I call it, is the Trident Warrior series. And the ends, what is it we're trying to get at? The improved warfighting capability, validate the capability gaps, exploring concepts. So there's a little bit of a crawl, walk, run piece to experimentation where you don't have to bite the whole apple off or the whole pie off at once. You're basically going out there to start out and possibly do a limited technical experiment, possibly do a demonstration. That then generates the buzz that gets you into an experiment, that gets you the data, that then could equate into a fleet experimentation, that then gives you the proof that you can improve warfighting capability. It's really the nexus for transferring data. One slide back. nexus for transferring emerging technologies into the operational capability. So the whole process is that. So just keep an eye on that, that there's a transition capability, but you have to start somewhere and you have to end somewhere, and you could be anywhere along that line when you start out. Next slide, please. Now, where I really wanted to focus this, and what I'm thinking from a small business perspective, where the questions are probably going to lie, is I'm a small business. How do I overcome these challenges? You know, government sponsorship, funding. How do I get funding? Barriers to entry. Those are all big challenges that small businesses face. And then we go into the engineering and installation piece, which, you know, I've listed some of the, I guess we could call them nightmare processes that the Navy has to ensure safety of their vessels, aircraft, and submarines. You know, cyber accreditation. Lithium-ion battery certification is like a 100-page document to bring a battery on a naval vessel. Lasers. If you have a laser, there's a whole process and certification and a board that needs to do that. Application integration is assessment. That is something that has to be done to put anything on a Navy network. Integrated warfare systems, Navy modernization process spectrum. I could just go on and on. These are the things that are challenges that small businesses face that could be very daunting from the outside looking in. So if you take anything away, how do we mitigate those challenges? One, you find the right venue. And a venue, the next one right after this, right event. So a venue and an event may not always be inclusive of each other. So for an example of that, an event could be a Rim of the Pacific exercise, huge exercise. The venue could be a Trident Warrior piece to that. And then the sub venue could be the Human Assistance Disaster Relief phase, because that's where your technology fits in Hawaii. So it's understanding how all of that works and where your technology is best needed to fulfill what we were trying to get at in the beginning, which is the data from your experiment. Government collaboration and support is key. Programs like this, the SBIR community, there's outreach programs. Having a government sponsor and a technical point of contact for your system that is very energized and wants to help is key to successful experimentation. Education and incorporated development, incorporating experimentation costs in the contract. Shadi is going to talk a little bit more about that, but basically, if you're planning out let's say a SBIR or some other thing, look at the cost of actually doing that as part of what you're talking to the government about, because that will help mitigate some of that risk. Because no small company that I know of can go out and do an experiment on their own dime and without a return on investment for that. So it's very difficult to get over that. And again, I'm probably touching on some key areas here that Shadi will talk about, but I want to jump into his bandwidth. Next slide, please. So all of that aside, kind of leads me into why this team that I lead has been developed. And we call it the SEC, which is the SBIR Experimentation Cell. And it was evolved, one more slide, please. So the purpose of the SEC was to help small businesses that are in the SBIR program do what I was just talking about, navigate the processes that are needed through experimentation, have a dialogue with the event coordinators and the experimentation community, have a dialogue with the system commands and technical point of contact, and have some methodology, a team that helps you. So our charter is to facilitate, mentor, and train in all aspects of experimentation. This is all based on SBIR initiatives. It's not small businesses, it's SBIR based, and that's our sponsor, is the Department of Navy SBIR office. And that help could be something small to something large. So I'm going to just roll through the rest of these. This is our kind of pattern brief. We have a website that this is all on, so I'll take up a little less time. Next slide, please. So some of the effects is we're trying to help SBIRs transition through relevant experimentation. Remember, I was talking about demonstrations, and we had a customer, we talked with this person, had a battery. It was a lithium-ion battery, the best battery in the world, but everybody loved it. It was in numerous experiments. They had flag level, loved it, and it went nowhere. And the first question I asked the president of this company is, well, how many experiments did you do? Well, we demonstrated this here, we demonstrated it here, and we demonstrated it there. And I said, well, what data did you have off that demonstration? Well, none. They all went home. It was just part of an event. So demonstration can only take you so far. So please be aware of that. And being able to understand and navigate the processes of experimentation is a challenging aspect in itself, and the SEC is here to help that. Some of the methods we're looking at, we have a guidebook. We just finished up. It was published, and it is out there for use, and it's the 101 Basics of Experimentation. Everything I've been talking about here in detail is in that book. It's about 40 some pages, and it really demystifies a lot of the experimentation for the users who don't understand. That's on our website. The website is listed at the end of the brief here and on the brief, and we can get it out to whoever needs it. Facilitation, going out, doing events like this, helping small companies. It can be as simple as talking to a small business that's a SBIR about where best to go experiment, where they're at, what resources are out there for them. Guiding them and mentoring them once they're in an event is a key piece right now. We are mentoring 7 small businesses through things as large as a Baltic operations event in Germany. We are underway in 4th Fleet on some ships, and we're helping businesses with that. We're out in the field and talking to people that are just flying unmanned systems. And again, training people on how to use the experimentation systems. What is the best event for you? What is the best venue for you? Next slide, please. So our core competencies for the team, we're a small team, but we go across a lot of areas. So we understand the development of experiments. We've been doing it for a very long time. Problem statements, hypothesis, objectives. We understand what's called the DoD architecture framework and the models that can help take that data you get from an experiment, put it into forms. We have shipboard install expertise, accreditation and assessment, which is that nasty cyber accreditation piece I was talking about, and all of the things listed here. If we don't know, we go out, do research, figure it out, and come back to you, because that helps us learn. And by the way, we are putting out a SBIR 103 and 104 book. The 103 will be an install processes book that is a lot more in depth than the guide that we have out now. Okay, basically it's the end-to-end support, and we're experienced in all these phases I've been talking about. We've been doing naval experimentation for the long run, but more importantly, we are working with NAVWAR, NAVAIR, Syscoms, the Marines, anyone who has a venue. We're trying to get situational awareness of that to help guide you. So if you call us and you have an X, Y, and Z and you want to do something, we'll have a conversation with you, and it could be as simple as just guiding you to the right point of contact. Next slide. And again, just more that we do, operations analysis. We have a qualified analyst on staff that speaks all of the analytical pieces, but more often it's about mentoring and training you the best way to collect that data and then get into whatever report you're in. Next slide, please. Some of the organizations that we are and events that we're part of, this is just a small list. There's many more after this. And again, if you go on the website, there's the basic knowledge, the basic tools that are there. Our website, we're putting up a question and answer session that will help. And we're looking for feedback on any of the documentation that we have. Last slide, please. This is where our website is. It's navysibir.com/SEC. We have a SBIR experimentation guide that I talked about, the 101 guides, the general, and the shipwriter's guide. If a technology is going on a ship, it talks about all of the things that you'll need to know to go on a naval vessel, even where to eat, where to sleep, what money you have to take, what things you need, shower, shoes, any of that. It's just a basic guide. The installation guide is forthcoming this fall, and hopefully we'll have our analysis guidebook out after that. If you have any other information, my point of contact information is there. Our program manager is Mr. Scott Bartlett, listed above. And of course, we work for the director of SBIR, which is Mr. Bob Smith, a fantastic gentleman. Gretel, that's about the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Chris. I will ask some of the questions that have come up at the very end. Now, before Shadi starts his presentation, I did want to touch on a little bit, especially if you're new to the government world, onto what NAVWAR is, what NAVAIR, NAVSEA are. So the Department of the Navy has a lot of goals to support our fleet. And so what they do is they basically broke it down into little pockets, right? And each pocket has its own area of responsibility. These pockets are called system commands or SysComs. So NAVWAR, just like NAVAIR and NAVSEA, are those SysComs, and they all focus on different things to better achieve this goal of supporting our fleet. So for NAVWAR, for example, NAVWAR focuses on information dominance, such as cybersecurity, communications, tactical networks, etc. And this is kind of going back to what I mentioned about SBIR Connect wanting to create a resources page for you, so it's a little bit clearer as to what NAVWAR does and what like every other agency in SysCom specializes on. So with that said, Shadi Asum is the NAVWAR SBIR STTR program manager, and he's going to do a quick presentation now.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Gretel. Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Shadi Azum. Just as Gretel mentioned, I am the program manager for SBIR and STTR for the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, or NAVWAR. I am going to touch on Chris's presentation just a little bit, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and hopefully you guys can see. If I go on full screen, hopefully it shows up. So just to touch a little bit on it, so SBIR and STTR is a program that provides seed funding to small businesses based on needs that we have within our own respective SysComs or commands. We issue out topics 3 times a year, and those topics are again based on some of the gaps that our command and the PEOs or program executive offices that we serve, those are the capability gaps that those topics really are connected to. For the purposes of SBIR, once a topic has been out on the street, and if you are one of the lucky ones that actually do submit a proposal in response to one of our topics, you are competing for this sort of timeline that you see here on the slide, which I really abstracted to a very high level. Topics that are issued out 3 times a year, companies do compete for the first phase, which is a phase 1 award, which affords a 6-month duration time frame with up to $140,000. The goal is meant to provide just enough funding to prove the feasibility of your solution that's in response to the problem that's declared in one of our topics. The companies that do get phase 1s, and we award multiple ones to promote competition, then get further down selected to a phase 2 award, which, as you see here in this middle block, offers a substantial amount of funding to help expand your feasibility study and provide enough funding to develop a prototype. It's right after phase 2 that SBIR is no longer a funding source, and it's expected that the government program that first issued the topic to begin with is going to expand upon your feasibility study. Sorry, Gretel.
Sorry about that. Could you move on to your second slide? Because I think it went on to full slide, but it's not showing all of them.
Oh, it did. Let's do that. Can you see it now?
I can see the presentation, but not all of the slides as you speak. So I think it'll be better, especially for the faces.
Let me stop and let me try that one more time.
I can also share them on my end. So if that
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that.
Sorry
Perfect.
about that.
No, I just go on and on. Okay, perfect. That's perfect. So as I was kind of saying a little bit earlier, so companies go through this life cycle where they're first competing for a phase 1 award and then further down selected to a phase 2 award. And as you see here, the phase 2 award offers a substantial amount of funding to expand the work that's being done in your phase 1, should you have received the award, to then develop a prototype. But the intention is to get to a phase 3, which is where the original government program actually has the funding to then support transition of your prototype and get in the hands of our fleet community. One thing to kind of keep in mind, and this is where it ties into my very next slide, if we don't mind going on to it, Gretel. So Chris did a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Chris, for that information about the importance of naval experimentation. So how we do see how SBIR is involved is typically during the end or the later part of a phase 2 life, or as part of the phase 2 award. We do see a lot of our existing companies that do get a phase 2 award that will tackle the last couple of months or the last year of their effort dedicated to do a formal experimentation that Chris kind of outlined in his previous presentation. So that's a pretty important thing to kind of keep in a timeline where exactly naval experimentation will fit into the overall life cycle. I've also seen cases where, as part of a phase 3, the government program will also do a formal experimentation as part of that outside of the SBIR funding, and something that's sponsored by the government program of record. Chris did mention about having a champion. I think one thing to take in solace with respect to SBIRs is that you will always have a government program of record that's overseeing your entire SBIR award. So there is that notion, well, you're already given a champion from the get-go. So I think that's the one beauty about participating in the SBIR program in concert with Navy experimentation. And then last but not least, and this is kind of something that expands, I think, on what Chris has mentioned, is that every one of our SBIR awards does have a government technical point of contact. It's an engineer or it's somebody from the individual program offices that did sponsor the topic to begin with, that is going to see through to the end. And so it's really important to engage with them as much as possible and help have that discussion in regards to experimentation and when you think that your specific solution is ready to take it to a formal event. That being said, I had 2 parts to this presentation. So the first part was with how experimentation ties in with SBIR, but I do want to segue just a little bit. So one of the things that I know Connect offers that Gretel and I participate in are these office hours, which we highly recommend. It gives you an opportunity to answer or to get answers for any SBIR program questions that you might have, and to get a little bit more face-to-face, although we're doing it virtually. We have had a couple of inquiries that has made us think that probably it's best to kind of dedicate a little topic of our next workshop, which is today, to kind of talk about. If we go back to go to the next slide, actually, Gretel. So one of the things that we get questions about, and this leads to kind of showing you guys a little bit of the online portals available to you. Some of the questions that have come to us during these office hours are if you as a company or as a startup have done some work in a particular realm, but you're not really sure if the Navy's interested in it, or if there's another different agency that does participate in SBIR that would be interested in it. As Gretel did mention, we do have different areas of responsibility. So things like, I'll just bring it up, if there's something dealing with life sciences, we don't typically do that as the command. But that's nonetheless meaning that you shouldn't shy away from this program. There just might be a different entity that does do SBIR that would be interested. So I wanted to kind of talk about how one could go about finding out who to talk to. I'm going to pull up or share my screen just a little bit, Gretel. I think I can do that. Hopefully that does not give me any further issues. So I will share my Google Chrome page. So an important, Gretel, I'm going to go to you. Are you able to see this?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, so one of the best resources that I think is available to find out what's being done in SBIR, not just Navy, not just Department of Defense, but across the different 11 agencies that participate, is SBIR.gov. This is one of the great resources we highly recommend that you check out just to see what kind of topics are out, what kind of companies have been awarded before in the past, or maybe you want to engage with them to collaborate. One of the things, I know it's a very big website to kind of think about or to look at is to go to under the reports at the upper bar, the navigation bar, there's a award data. And if you click on it, you will actually see a list of 188,030 results, which is each corresponding to each individual SBA award that has been made since 1983. But it also shows the different abstracts of companies that have been awarded some of the work that they've done under SBIR. On the left, you see all the different agencies that participate in the program. So these are the ones on this left under the agency bar, where you can see who actually within the realm that is the government actually sponsors or pushes out topics that leads to contracts and grants. And then you can narrow it down by different filtering mechanisms. I think the key thing to kind of keep in mind is to answer the original question, which is if I have something that I'm working on, but I don't know who to talk to or which SBIR fits the realm, the best thing to do is to search by keywords, which is up here on the top bar. So if I actually enter any specific keywords, it should show me any relevant SBIR awards of companies that have been awarded. But as you'll see, there might be something that is related or will show you or indicate who's the agency that sponsored that topic to begin with. So as an example, we did receive some questions for this workshop. I believe there's one that covered about biofeedback. If the Navy's interested, for NavWar, I don't think we touch on that. However, if we do use that as part of the keyword search, we should see some relevant awards that are in that specific area or that specific keyword. One thing to kind of keep in mind is that if I do search by keyword, I just put in biofeedback, and this is exactly some of the results that come across. If you click on each individual one, you will not only get some information about the award, but I think the key thing to look for is the agency, which is right here, which is the actual department that sponsored this SBIR. So they would be the right sort of department to engage with if you're bringing in a specific product or technology or research and development that you've done that might be related. And not to steal Connect's or Gretel's specific thunder, but Connect is especially going to release a website that will specifically direct you to the SBIR department underneath these different agencies, which I think will be a valuable resource for you in the future. But this is one of those resources where if it doesn't fit what we as at NavWar, or my command, or broadly what Navy's working on, that doesn't necessarily mean there's not a different agency out there that would be interested. It's just finding the right people to engage with. Second thing that I wanted to talk about, so if we go back to the presentation, Gretel, I think I wanted to go back, so I'll stop sharing.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay.
And let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, so another thing that we always get asked during these office hours that we thought is a nice little slot to talk about today is learning more about broadly Department of Defense topics. I did want to segue just a little bit to talk about the DoD SBIR SDTR.mil website, which I'll pull up right now. So sorry, Gretel, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so another helpful link to kind of bookmark for yourselves if you're interested in doing work broadly with the Department of Defense is DoD-SBIR-SCTR.mil. And this provides a portal to not only apply for any Department of Defense topic, but also provide a way for you guys to know what we are looking for specifically under that department itself. This website is relatively new. It's the Defense SBIR SCTR Innovation Portal, or DSIP. But you can see some of our active announcements that are shown here. It gives you a little bit of a timeline of when things or when your proposals are due, should you have any interest in applying to one of our specific topics. So just to kind of keep in mind, Navy is part of DoD. So Navy's topics are going to be posted also on this website or this portal. And if you would like to see some of our active announcements, there is a quick link which shows BAA schedule, which if I click it here, will tell you some important dates to kind of keep in mind, as well as give you a direct link to all of the topics under that specific announcement. So in this particular case, we do have an active announcement out for our specific one of the 3 cycles, the second cycle of our fiscal year. And then it actually shows the dates. If you attended our last workshop, I believe it was the last one or the one before, our last workshop covered a little bit of information about what these dates mean. And basically, to summarize them, the pre-release dates are the dates where between pre-release and open, you can ask questions directly with topic authors underneath those announcements. And from the open date to close date gives you the opportunity to actually submit your proposal to this portal. You can still ask questions, but the questions and answers during open and close are posted publicly, as well as their answers are posted publicly. So one of the most helpful advices I give to people is please take advantage of the period between pre-release and open, because it allows you a little bit more of a direct connect with the topic authors or the ones that actually wrote the topic to begin with. Right now, as the dates, and being on telework, you kind of forget your dates. But right now we are in the between the period between open and close. So we are accepting proposals for our 21.2 cycles. So do kind of keep that in mind if you're interested. To get a direct link to all the topics, it's the Read BAA Details tab that you see here, which will give you a link to the actual PDF of the entire announcement with all the topics in there. If you are interested in submitting a question or something related to one of the topics that are posted in that announcement, I would refer to the topic info top bar and then go to the topics and topic Q&A or CITES subpage, which will give you a list of all the different topics that are under the current active solicitation. And then you'll see the Q&A marker on the right-hand bar that will direct you to post your questions, but also see any questions or answers that have been addressed in the topic that could provide some additional information to you if you're interested in submitting to one of our topics. So we are actually, Gretel mentioned, we have posted about 9 different videos that you can view at your leisure at connect.org/SBIR. We will have a dedicated video, I know, that will cover about resources with respect to this website and the SBIR.gov website if you're interested in learning more about the web resources that are out there. That being said, I do have a few questions that we did receive from the workshop. So Gretel, I don't know if you wanted to have any closing remarks before I just go into a fast fire Q&A.
No, I think we can take it away. I think I'll ask one question that I have for Chris, actually. So Chris, if you're still there with us, I did want to ask, for the DONSEC or the DON-SEC, does a person or a company that want to get involved and participate, do they have to be a SBIR awardee prior to getting involved with DONSEC, or is it a little bit more flexible?
That's a very good question. We are a silver, we're focused really on, like Shadi said, the phase 2s and where they're at in that development that helps. However, if there is a question they have, it's small, go ahead and reach out to me. I will talk to the sponsor. If there's something we can do, I'll let you know right off the bat. It doesn't take long to have a 5-10 minute conversation And if I can guide you, I have no problem doing that.
Thank you. I think one of the attendees did ask something that's a little specific, and maybe there's no answer for it right now, but he wanted to know if you have any hydrodynamic software development going on right now for experimentation. I know that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's, not that I know of off the top of my head. However, if there's a way to get feedback to that person, I'll definitely take a look and look across all the experimentation forums. Generally, if between the 17 different fleet experimentation events going on and the ONR, Office of Naval Research experimentation analysis groups, I can't see a single thing that isn't covered somewhere. So I could get back to them and find out about that.
That'd be great. Thank you. I do want to remind everyone that Chris is really kind and shared his actual emails with you and his phone number, not to take advantage of, but you can reach out to him for more support. So we will be sharing his slides as well as this video on an email to all of the attendees. So you can look at his information at the very last slide of his deck. And then Shadi, I know I have the questions as well, so I can just ask it.
I think there is a few of them I'll address. So one of them that we were asked, are there specific topics of interest for the upcoming solicitation? So kind of tying back to what I was kind of sharing a little bit earlier with the DoD SBIR SCTR.mil website, you can check out all of our latest topics in the active solicitation. We cannot share any topics on the upcoming ones unless they've been published. This just goes back to the nature of SBIR trying to be a fair and competitive program. So as much as insider trading doesn't really work well under SBIR, we just have to wait until it's being released. But that's the sort of the portal to go about doing it. Another one, will the Navy offer open topics similar to the Air Force that was received by us? So we try not to, or we've shied away from doing open topics in Navy broadly. That really, it's something that I think Air Force did stand up through their AFWorks program. We don't do that simply because we want to make sure that every one of our topics that are released is championed by a program. Even though they are very specific and very niche based, I think the silver lining about that is you get someone as a champion from the get-go. And kind of tying it back to Chris, it's having, the topics may be specific, but if you have that government champion, that just works well down the line, especially when it comes to getting it formally, experimented on, or, following it through until phase 3. So we don't do open topics, and that's for a specific reason. I think some of the other ones are very similar, like what challenge problems does Navy SBIR want to address? Same thing, kind of use the DoD SBIR SCTR.mil website as a great resource to you. And then how does a company initiate a proposal based on a need in the military? So if you follow specifically with DoD, the portal, the DSIP portal that we kind of just showed, does give some instructions about how to kind of get started or how to apply. If you do have any questions about that or encountering any issues, I think either one of Gretel or myself could actually assist in kind of directing you to the right entity for that. So that's, I think, a standing resource that we're here to help you guys out with applying for one of our topics. We can't assist you with the proposal itself, but to direct you to the website links to kind of get started if you're having a hard time navigating the web resource.
Thank you, Shadi. I'm going to ask now both you and Chris, if you guys have any quick tips on how to get involved, not just with SBIR, but with the DONSEC, if there's any ways that it's a little bit easier to infiltrate and participate. So yeah, open to both of you.
Shadi, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so we do this gets me to a related question, if companies can recommend topics. So I would say, again, going back to the fair nature of the program, we don't accept topics from industry. So if it's something like you don't see a topic that Navy's releasing, but you do think that Navy could benefit from probably your technology, what I would say to that is it's probably helpful to connect you with one of the program offices that would be issuing topics. And you can have an open discussion with them without that necessity that there needs to be a topic to be released or that implication that they're going to create a topic based on it. But you're free to, and we're here standing by to help connect you with those offices to kind of maybe give them some light as to what they're missing out, to be used for. So I would say as a helpful tip, let us know what your technology is. We can see if it's a fit within our command. And then from there, connect you with the right personnel that would be ones that would start up a topic. Of course, with that underlying disclaimer that they probably won't be issuing a topic, or giving you that leeway into it. That's all I have.
Yeah, and then for experimentation, I highly encourage going to our website, reading the SBIR Experimentation 101 guide. And of course, my email's on there as well as the contact. We're a fairly new organization, and when our web page gets more, basically more robust and expansive, we'll probably have a question and answer piece on there that'll be a little bit more effective than, calling and emailing Chris all the time. But until then, our program manager's on there. I'm on there. If I can't answer it, I'll get a team member to get back to you, and we will handle those first come, first serve. But I do encourage you to please read the guides first and see if you can find for yourself in that, because you can digest that a little bit easier. And then if I'm not available or something, you get, your help right off the bat. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I do want to, I think, back to Shadi's point, one of the main reasons why that's not the case and why they don't allow small businesses to come up with the topic is just to remind everyone the SBIR program is a competitive program. So you never want to give anyone a leg up. You want to make sure that everyone that's applying is an even field. Nobody likes a deflated ball, right, Tom? But that's the main point. And that's also why we can assist with the actual writing of your proposal. So SBIR Connect, even though we are not a government entity, we do have a partnership with Shadi at NAV4, and we follow those rules. So we're here to support you and answer as many questions as we can, but we cannot help you with the actual writing of your proposal. If not, we would have to do so for hundreds of other people. So I think with that said, there's no other questions that I see, but I do want to thank both of you for your time today. I want to point out that we will be sending an email with this video as well as the slides. And I also want to encourage everyone to check out our previous workshops, our future workshops, our Connect page. So that's connect.org/SBIR. And we'll have the resources page up there in the next week or two. So check that out later. Check out our videos, and also please fill out our survey to let us know if we're doing okay, what we can improve on, what other topics you'd like to have us touch on, so that on their future presentations, we can have more amazing people come up and talk about it so it's useful to you. So with that said, thank you both so much. And if you don't have anything else to say, I think we can call it a day and give you 7 minutes back.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Gretel.
Thank you, everyone. It was a privilege. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks.